Hello, this is a comparison video between Playwright and Cypress, the E2E front-end testing tools for web apps. I'm going to go over both. If you think the video is too long, just read the contents here. I'm just going to go through this, but visually. I'm going to compare back and forth between them. I compared these versions. My personal result in advance, for me, Playwright is the winner because it's easier to handle. It's more straightforward to do parallel testing for multiple browsers, even though it is a little bit noisy. Okay, let's dive into it. If you open Playwright, this is the screen you get greeted with. You have, let me put this a little bit more in perspective here. So you have a root test folder, and in that root test folder, you have a couple of folders. I have, for example, the folder general. There is a file UI spec.js, and this file contains a couple of tests. I can also, makes no sense if you look at it, but I have this file here, and I have like kind of like a namespace here. Test.description is the keyword here. If you do jest, you know what I'm talking about. It's just a grouping within one single file, and then you see a test here. If I want to run the test, so just press the play button. Press the play button here, and then it runs the tests, several in parallel on my machine, 4 in parallel, and then goes on. I can always see the test results there, and I will go through the diff testing later. Let's look at the table view because we have a couple of interesting tests here. Okay, maybe not this one. Here. So this is how your tests essentially look like when they're run. I need to make this like this. So this is essentially just an HTML page that shows JSON, YAML, or stuff. And these are the steps that are being run during the test. And for every step, you see what's happening. The click is shown with the red dot there. You clear something, maybe you type something, you enter something and stuff, right? This is how it goes. You can also say before the action, after the action, how did it look, right? If you want to compare with the source code, here is the source code. So you can go through the source code like this. If you want to add something, if you want to add a step, but you're not sure, like, well, I want to do something with, let's say, it's so difficult to see. I want to maybe put something here in this filter box. As you can see, I already can actually type something in. Yeah, I actually can type something in. Oh my god, didn't know this before the video. Anyway, so my point was I can just click this button, then click here, and then it shows me this, and I can use this expression to get this very element to write my test with it. That is a feature. You can also see that the lower part of the screen is cut off, and when I move it like this, the right side of the screen is cut off. That's a UI problem. Okay, that's so far so good for Playwright. Let's look into Cypress. So when you open Cypress, you get greeted with this screen. You can do component testing. Never did it. I do E2E testing. Then it initializes something. Then you choose your browser, which one you want to have. You can only choose one at a time. I choose Chrome. Start testing. Need 2 buttons. And as you can see already, I cannot start Edge now. I can click here and it doesn't have nothing happening. I would have to close Chrome to open a new folder, a new browser here. That's a kind of sad. Yeah. Okay. Then my root folder is Cypress E2 or Cypress, I guess. And then there is an E2E folder in that, and that has a couple of folders. It's similar, not the same, not exactly the same structure, but a similar structure. And so you have this folder and you have this file, and if I click this file here, then it will open this screen. Takes a little bit of time, and then it will run the test. Maybe this is a little bit faster here. The first run is always difficult. There you go. Okay, now I can see all the tests ran, and I can go back and run different tests. So what you can see from here is that you cannot see, what you can see is that you cannot see the test results, right? You have to click a file to see the test results. And when you click a file, it will run the test. So if it's a heavy test, it's going to be run every single time when you click on it, apparently. Maybe you can tweak something in the config. But yeah, you always have to. And when you have like 500 files, have fun testing all of them in the UI. That is, yeah, fun, right? You also don't have a play button in general here. You can't just run all the tests. You can say, please run all the tests and give me the results. It doesn't work. Very sad, and that is also a very, very big reason why Playwright is the winner. At least in this version. Keep this in mind. Maybe the people of Cypress look at this and see, well, he got a point. Maybe they fix it. Then things change, but at the very moment, this is the thing. Okay, then let's look into multi-browser testing. I already told you that for Playwright, let's start with Playwright. Did I tell you? No, maybe not. I did this video a couple of times. Okay, so when you want to do multi-browser testing for Playwright, first you have to manually install the browsers here. You do this command, and then you can install Chrome, Firefox, WebKit, and Edge. And then you need to create a config file that configures that triggers when you set up, for example, the project to Firefox, then please run with Firefox. When you set the project to Chromium, please run with Chromium. Kind of like that. So you need a configuration for that. Yeah, I can do that. It's not a biggie, but the first hurdle is a little bit higher then. But from here, I can just say, well, I can just run all these commands with npm run, and then I have 4 Playwright UIs that are in front of me, and I can simultaneously run them. No problem. Okay, how does that look on Cypress? On Cypress, like I said, you have this thing here. You can easily click other buttons. What is very nice is when I click Edge and it's not installed, it will do it in the background and everything is fine. I don't have to tweak, I don't have to install anything. It is all in the background, super nice. And then it opens Edge. The thing that's very sad at this point is I can't run them in parallel. So it looks like it's super easy, but actually I can only run them one by one, or I have to run Cypress 4 times. I don't have any problem with running Cypress 4 times. It's the same that I do with Playwright, but it goes like in this UI. It goes in the direction of, well, we provide a very nice UI, and then they say, well, sorry, but now if you want to do it in the same time, then no. That's very sad. And speaking of at the same time, sorry, I forgot something early in my previous one. Those tests here, they run one by one, not at the same time. If you want to have one by one support, then you need to enter the cloud. Okay. Oh, and by the way, maybe I should also give this a little bit more time. You can see the same here. You can do the same stuff here as we did in Playwright. What is pretty neat here is when I run the test, for example, I go here, and then I can say edit in Studio, and then I can click here and say hello, enter, and it will actually do that here. So I can just copy and paste it from here to my source code, and it already works. Let's stop recording here. Apparently you can do a little bit more in Studio, but I really didn't get deep into that because, well, this part already failed the whole thing. Okay, but let's go deeper. Let me get my notes here. So, what's the test speed? Well, can't really say, but I can say that Playwright is running in parallel, so it ought to be a little bit faster. What about screenshot tests? Okay, let's go Playwright first. Playwright, where's my Playwright? Here's Playwright. Okay, screenshot tests. First of all, they are built in, and the very first setup is maybe a little bit annoying. I don't know. But if you have AI, well, then it's just one command. That's all right. Okay, let's look at how it looks. Okay, so here's a failing screenshot test, and here's the error that we can see. We see it has 3000 pixels, like are different. Okay, what is the difference? We want to know what is the difference. We just hit attachment. It's a little bit hidden here under attachment. I have to say that. I had to ask the AI to figure out where this stuff is. Once you know it, it's all right. Would be nicer if they would call it differently. Okay, but then here you see the diff. This doesn't really help us so far. So let's look at the actual result. Let's look at the expected result. Maybe we want to look at it side by side. Maybe we want to use a slider. Oh my God, this is so nice here. Okay, so this thing is a little bit hidden, but the rest of the UI is super nice. Okay, what about the source code? How does the source code look? We compare this screenshot. It looks like actually this is an absolute file name, but is actually not. It is actually adding a browser information there, and a file and a operating system information. So it adds some more information, but this is like the base name, so to say. We can also do this here, caret hide, that will remove the false positives for blinking cursors anywhere on the screen. Okay, let's go to Cypress. Cypress has also, of course, no, actually, no, actually not. Cypress doesn't have screenshot tests. First of all, it doesn't have screenshot. There is the functionality, but it's so old and apparently unmaintained that you can't install it. Instead, you need to install from this nice guy Simon Smith, Cypress Image Snapshot. If you install this package, then you can get it to work. It's not that much big of a deal, but it's a difference if it's already in there or if you first have to search for which package you need to use. Okay, so then second problem is you get, I can't show you right now, but the caret thing that we just had with Playwright, you don't have it naturally in the Cypress snapshot testing. So if you have a blinking caret, that creates a false positive, and I actually really had that. It adds a little bit of friction. You can also work around that. Apparently, didn't try it, but yeah, it's a little bit unnecessary. And then also, this is not a failing test, but the thing is, there is no button here for looking at the diff, and this is actually a really big biggie especially if you want to do more tests like that. So let's get this down here. All those messages here. So what you actually need to do then is you have to locate in your folder structure, there is a diff output here. You have to locate this file and it will give you the output. So you have left and right, and you have here in between. It's not from the test that I just showed you, from a different test. You see that the screenshot size was different, therefore it looks like this. My point is, if you have a lot of tests and a lot of failing screenshot tests, and this is probably a pain in the there's probably a lot of time you will need to do all that checking. So it would be super nice if they would like work on this UI. Okay. Then what if you want to do a single element check? Let's go back here. So these screenshots that I just showed you, they check the whole screen, but sometimes you just want to have a part, like you want to run something, and then for example you just want to check if the tabs here in the top, if they look right, or you want to check if here this is the so-called editor element, if that is all right. You can also do that. It's fairly easy actually. Let me show you the source code for that. It can be fairly easy, let's say. So you have expect, say then page locator. This is like a standard pattern. Then you say which element you want to check, and say to have a screenshot and compare it. Here's the screenshot name, and of course you say that the caret should not be in there. And for all the tests, for almost all steps, you need to wait. Okay, that works. It looks a little bit noisy, so I gotta say it looks a little bit noisy. On the other side, on Cypress is super easy. Cypress get editor match screenshot. Done. Okay, I don't know, here's some typos, some typos. Okay, next part is next part is the cross-browser snapshot test. Maybe let me write down something for you so you get the idea what I'm talking about. You can say you have two types of browser tests. You can cross-browser tests, or snapshot tests, sorry. I have two types of snapshot tests. One is like you say, well, I have Edge and I have my snapshot, let's say my snapshot 1, then I do some changes, and now I have a second snapshot and I want to compare 1 and 2. And the same I have for Firefox. But you can also go, let's say that's the horizontal way. And you can also say, well, but I want to go vertical. That means you have one snapshot, and that's the baseline for everything. And then you do some changes, and then you compare your Edge, and then you compare your Firefox, and then you compare your Chrome and your WebKit and whatever. Meaning, so you have one baseline, and you say the website should look the exact same on every browser. So I want this cross-browser thingy. That was what I meant with cross-browser snapshot testing. Question is, can they do it? Answer is both yes. But there is a catch. If you're on Playwright, it's a little bit difficult to mix those two. So if you want to do this, then you need a certain configuration for like a test configuration. This is not a per test thing, but for the whole suite, right? And if you want to mix those, maybe if you find a workaround, but there's no super simple way, no straightforward way to do, well, generally I want to do this, but I have 2 tests that should go like this, right? I didn't find an easy solution. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I didn't spend too much time working on it, but I didn't see it so far. On Cypress, it's a little bit easier because you actually really do the test names in the code. Sorry, the screenshot names, you write them down in the code. So it's much easier there to say, I want to go this for most tests and this for just a couple of tests. So okay, then let's go and compare the readiness of the test frameworks. I find Playwright to be a little bit noisy because every command has an await. While on Cypress, if we scroll down a little bit here, it's much easier. You start with Cy and then everything's fine. Also, that's not necessarily a problem for readiness. Is readiness actually a word? Playwright does not build in a lot of, it does build in a lot of functions you need, but there are still a lot of functions that you need to create yourself. So for example, this paste into selector function, I had to build it myself. There is no page paste or something like that. Would be nice. Page is the root object that you use to working on. On the other side, Cypress has it. Paste text into element, done. That is said, yeah. Then if you compare the assert statements on Playwright, it's comparably easy because you see, well, expect says, well, okay, from now on we're doing an assert here. Now assert starts. On Cypress, on the other hand, to understand if something is supposed to be an assert or not, you have to look at the very end. It's not a biggie, but that's the thing. That's also part of the readiness, I guess. And then I figured out not to have value. There's something contain text. I think this one of them like has a weird name and it doesn't really work as it's named. But I can't really tell you now in this video. Okay. Yeah, that's the custom solution here. You have a couple of things that you need custom solutions for. Not a big deal if you have an AI support, but it adds a little bit friction. Okay. Oh, actually I can't put this up here. That's it. Whoops. That's it for my comparison, Playwright versus Cypress. Hope it helped. Leave me a comment if you like. Thanks for watching.